Yes, indeed. You damn right. It's a Thursday. Always stuff to talk about on House Divided. Our man Jeff Ketchum's taking a business day. He doesn't take many personal days. This is him working. He's got some things to take care of. I'm Chad Hastings. That's why I'm on this side of things. And that's why you see the familiar face of Wes Miller. He is back. What's up, Wes?
How's it going, man? Good to be here.
It's going good. It's a big day for a lot of reasons. We're going to get into it real quick in the chat. Catherine's already jumped in. Afternoon, guys. Made a new friend in D-tackle Dylan Berryman, taking a visit to Austin this weekend. Seems like he's excited to be coming for a visit. We need him. Catherine, Texas does need everybody needs D-tackles. If you find a badass one, you definitely want to do that. We invite everybody to do what Catherine did. Jump on In the Specs chat. Like, subscribe, get your notifications, hit that like button. Make sure you get it done. One thing you'll like today, if you are a Longhorn fan, there's an emoji coming in. Thank you. Just another fragrance reviewer. 100 days until Texas kickoff is today. This Thursday here in May is 100 days until kickoff. Trip says just woohoo. There you go. That's it. Another good afternoon from Doug. Thank you, Doug. 100 days till kickoff, and Longhorn fans, you only have to wait 39 more days until you're officially a member of the SEC. That is 39 days from now. But interesting that Texas is not quite an SEC team, because we're going to get into some details today about this whole lawsuit stuff going on in the NCAA and how Texas is a part of it, but isn't a part of it in some ways. We'll get to all that. Before we do, let's also give some flowers, give some love where it is due. Check out this dude, kids. Longhorn fans, how about an AD of the year? You like that? That's a little Chris Del Conte for you. He put his own comment on Twitter. The award is a reflection of the efforts of our students, coaches, and our staff. Oh, look at him spreading the credit out, who strive to the very best on the daily basis. Thank you, Longhorn Nation, for your belief. A united Texas is a reckoning. Got the emoji there. Got love from Jay Hartzell. Oh, look who else gave him love. Matthew McConaughey. My man, the one and only CDC, simply the best, well-earned CDC. There's only one you. Congratulations. Drew Martin giving him some love, too. Congrats to CDC for that. We want to give him his love today. And it fits in, Wes, with the conversation we are going into, because CDC is going to be a massive part of how Texas fits into this whole lawsuit thing. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about House versus NCAA, try to give you a little info on what it is. But most importantly, for all of you out there that love your burnt orange, or, hey, maybe you got somebody in your family that's like me and might care about the maroon side of things. We are House Divided after all. What's it going to look like? And how does Texas need to be positioned in this new college sports, new college football world? We'll focus a lot on football, but obviously it's not just about football, but it's mainly about football. Doug gives CDC well done, and he is doing a hell of a job. There is no doubt about that. So let's get into this. Just a quick definition. I'm not going to go too crazy on getting into the weeds. Everybody knows I can get into the weeds a little bit, but just to let everybody know, Wes, I was under the impression when I first saw this thing that it was called House versus NCAA because it meant like the House of Representatives or something like that. Not the case. It's actually a person named Grant House. He was a swimmer at Arizona State. There's also another plaintiff, if you will, and her name is Sedona Price. Interestingly enough, she started at Texas, then Oregon, then TCU, women's basketball. If you want an interesting story, you can dig through that one. I'll let you do that on your own. Shout out Liberty Hill, by the way, a Liberty Hill athlete. She's one of the plaintiffs here, and it's them against the NCAA. And here's basically their point as I throw my pen. Don't throw pens, making points. The basic point was this. They looked to the NCAA and said, well, wait a second, in like 2021, 22, whenever, right in that time period. Once NIL became legal, they thought, wait a second, hold on. We missed this opportunity. What about us? What about us just a few years ago? So, Wes, they weren't making like the Johnny Manziel argument or a Colt McCoy argument. or even, events, or even back to Ricky and Earl. They're making an argument from just a couple years prior of where's our money. We could have made money. I was a big time swimmer, or I was a big time women's basketball player, whatever. So when we talk today about money that's being reimbursed, or not reimbursed, money that's being given to former athletes, it's because of that argument. They're settling that lawsuit, and what they're going to do is they're going to go back 4 years. That's it. I was asking that question for a couple days. I had not found the right story to tell me the info. It's only 4 years. So we joked with Chance Mock last night on The Outsiders about, Chance, what are you going to do with all that money? Chance doesn't get the money. And to my other point, neither does Colt, Ricky, Vince. No. So this is the line I kind of drew. This would mean Michael Dixon and Charles Omenihu could get the money, but Quandre Diggs and Marquise Goodwin can't. If you're a Longhorn football fan, you kind of draw that. I just drew that line at 2016 is kind of where they're doing it. Back to 2016 and then forward is where they can get the money. So that's the reimbursement part, Wes, that we're talking about. I want to get your thoughts, because my first question was like, well, how far back are you going to go? And they've decided 4 years is enough time to go. And the price tag for them is $2.7 billion that they're going to be paying these athletes.
Yeah, and I think that from a statute of limitations perspective, 4 years is probably what they could deem affordable. We're going to talk about that. But this also kind of reminds me of the Chuck O'Bannon lawsuit, where name, image, and likeness really kind of got going, when he was saying they weren't accurately represented, with jersey sales, the same arguments that all the athletes we know, like the Johnny Manziels of the world, that have been making over the past few years. I think it all got kickstarted with the Chuck O'Bannon lawsuit. And now this has just grown through this whole NIL age of college athletics. As an NCAA athlete myself, I would not say that because I played in a little bit of a lower tier than, major Division I college athletics. I can't say that I have a perspective from a player, right? But what I can say is that these athletes do deserve to be compensated. If they feel like that their name, image, likeness, what have you, no NIL opportunities, if they weren't like fairly given those opportunities. I think that going back, you think of a sport like swimming, or volleyball, one that doesn't have the viewership. I'm curious to see what that breakdown looks like per athlete, but I think they should be compensated. The NCAA is a corrupt organization. It's time that they, kind of stood on business, if you would. And I hate the NCAA, so I'm kind of happy it's happening.
Okay. All right. Well, and the other thing to note here is it feels like there's a huge focus, rightly so, on football and men's basketball, because they are a huge part of that money, the money generation. And we don't know details yet about how it all gets dispersed. And to your question, I don't know if, rowing athletes get this from the last 4 years. Again, we're talking about a swimmer and a women's basketball player that brought it up, but I don't know if that means swimming and women's basketball get money. So we're going to have to wait and see about the details. The update on conferences is this. Big 12 has okayed this. The ACC has okayed this. Yesterday, the Big 10 okayed it. And most importantly, but it wasn't that big of a hurdle, the NCAA Board of Governors, wouldn't you love to go to one of their parties?
Thank goodness.
Voted to agree on this settlement with the House versus NCAA. Today, it's about the SEC and the Pac-12. Interestingly enough, Wes, if my math is right, and if I'm seeing it right, Texas and Oklahoma are actually not a part of any of this, because they abstained from the Big 12 vote because they just wanted to be out of it. They're like, look, fellas, y'all know we're leaving. We're not going to vote. But if the SEC votes today, they're not technically members. They might grandfather them in and let them vote. But Texas and Oklahoma may just be sitting kind of waiting to see what happens. And then for the Pac-12, they're going to vote with all 12 teams that we had last year. And then obviously 10 of them will be affected differently than those other two. Washington State and Oregon State will be affected as a group of whatever you want to call it. You want to call them group of 6. They're going to hang with the Mountain West for at least a year or two. They're still going to get some revenue for the Pac-12 for a couple years or whatever, but ultimately they're going to end up being, second-class citizens in this discussion, whereas the other teams will head to either the Big 12 or the Big 10. So they'll vote today, and at that point, Wes, it's done. I mean, that's really, I think, all that's left for this to become official. And then starting in 2025, those payments start going back to former players. And then most importantly, here's the part where if you're a Texas fan, you need to understand what this is about to be. A huge line in the sand is about to go away. They are going to allow teams, they're going to allow athletic departments to pay their players. They are going to, and it's brilliant language that I'm reading so far, they're going to allow them to pay an estimated $20 million or a suggested $20 million to their athletes. You don't have to pay it. You don't have to pay anybody anything. You could go, if Dabo Swinney wants to say, I'm not paying one athlete 1 cent, it's his prerogative to do it.
That's very Dabo.
That would be very Dabo if he wants to do that. So you can choose not to pay anything at all. But what they are calling this is, let's see if I get the word right. The permissive revenue, I believe, is what they're calling it. So you have to get this certain kind of revenue. If it's a certain type of revenue and it's acceptable, you can pay it to your athletes. And the number everybody's talking about is 20 million. But stay tuned, Texas fans, because if you make as much revenue as you do as the UT athletic department, I got a feeling that they're going to let you pay more. They're not going to just stop it. This isn't a cap. Nobody has the word cap is not in these discussions at all. It's the permissible revenue. Oh, okay. So all they have to do is define it. Define what the permissible stuff is, and then Texas and Alabama and Georgia and A&M and everybody else knows what that is. And then it's about how do you get as much of it as possible. And there's an extra 20 million they're saying you can pay to your players, but I'll bet you they can figure out ways to get it to other players. So in the chat today, I want to know what you're thinking as a Texas fan. I want to know what you want Texas to be in this discussion. Are you still going to be old school and say players shouldn't get paid and say this isn't fun anymore and say I don't know if I'm watching college football anymore? Or are you going to lean into this thing as a Texas fan and figure out what needs to happen? Wes, as a fan of Texas, what's your first thought when you hear players they're going to allow them to pay players, the athletic department? Not some collective, not some pancake factory, even though that'll still exist. This is the athletic department that can pay players. What's your reaction?
Number one, this moved so quickly after the NIL era really begun. And so where players had equal opportunity from an endorsement perspective and to get some kind of money coming in through their name, image, and likeness to be paid straight out by the athletic department, that one's a little tough for me. I'm all for players being compensated in one way or another. NIL felt like a good step forward, right? Saying outright that the athletic department can now pay players, to me, blurs the line between collegiate and professional athletics. Now, I know that a lot of college football fans would probably see the NCAA get rid of entirely. So that way, like we were talking about before the show, that college football is more like the NFL, right? Where does that line exist? And if, as a Texas fan, you should be elated because, Chad, like you were saying before the show, all Texas has to do is be Texas, right? Who's going to stand with Texas in this day and age if an athletic department is allowed to pay their players? A couple of schools come to mind. The one that we talked about prior to the show was A&M, because I think the A&M was either number one or number two. Over the last 5 years, it's been Texas and Texas A&M in terms of the amount of revenue that their athletic department brings in. So, in my opinion, those two programs, along with a couple of outliers, not even outliers, a couple others in that same discussion, I mean, are we going to have like 4 or 5 teams, 4 or 5 universities that are going to consistently now dominate college football because of the amount of money they can pay their players? Are we going to see any more Cinderella stories in college football? There's just like a lot of thoughts running through my head with being able to pay outright through the athletic department.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. On one hand, I'm excited. On the other hand, I would say the word worried is probably accurate. Just because we all love college athletics. We all love collegiate athletics. I don't really know the gravity of this change and what that's going to look like for college sports.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, it's such a, like I said, the line, it's not even moving the line. It's just getting rid of the line totally and saying you can pay players and figuring out how to do that is going to be big. All right. We got some good chats lined up. We'll get to those in a second. Want to thank our great partners as we always do on Orange Bloods Live, including this one, Audio Visual Consultations, 100 days till kick. Make it today that you say, okay, it's finally time. We're getting that big badass screen my kids have been talking about, or we're getting that big screen that I've been wanting, or I'm getting that multiple screen set up so I don't miss any action in all the football games. You got time, but you got to give them a call. 255-8678. They've been doing it since 1988, way back when everybody pretended like guys didn't get paid and everything was under the table and we weren't where we are today. Way back then. So they've been doing it that long. That means they've answered every question. They put a screen in every place you can imagine, and they'll do it for you. Our man Tom at Audio Visual Consultations once told me they put 12 screens in somebody's bedroom. 12. If you want that, they'll do it. You want a screen in your kitchen, they'll do it. You want one in a mirror like they put in at Pluckers? You've seen those, right? When you go to Pluckers? Yeah, they put that in there. They can do the same for you if that's what you want. 255-8678 or avconsultations.com. Check them out. 100 days to kickoff today. All right. Good chats coming in. Let's roll through some of them here. This is Money B says CDC, pull out the checkbook. This would be along the lines of that B Texas thing, Wes. The one thing I've said about Texas over the years, you can't seem cheap. There was stuff in the Charlie Strong era. It felt cheap. Steve Patterson, it felt cheap. Don't do that. Be Texas. Use the checkbook. Pull the sword. Swing it. Swing it when you need to. This is one of those moments where you can't be behind. Don't be behind like when Nick Saban had 28 analysts and Texas had none. Everybody found that out and they're like, whoa, wait, what? What's going on? Make sure you're out in front. CDC, I think, is a good guy to do that. Somebody else says about time to pay these players. Text guy, I think there's a lot of people that would agree with you on that. College football has been semi-pro for some time, so paying them seems fair. And this is just a great shot at across the Red River. Just more proof Williams wasn't worth 1.5. There you go. There you go. And Money B throws in wins equals more revenue for the athletic department.
Hey, Chad, there's one more. Will you pull it up? It's from just another fragrance reviewer.
Hang on. Let me see if I've got it. Where did it go? Hold on. Oh, sorry. There it is. This one here?
Yeah, so figured out players should get paid. Going to school and playing any sport is like having 2 full-time jobs. I disagree. Just being someone that's lived that life, yes, it is demanding. Yes, you are spending a lot more time dedicated to your athletic craft than other people are, studying, etc. 2 full-time jobs, I wouldn't say necessarily, right? I think that college, especially being a collegiate athlete, teaches you time management. I would say that I don't think that's I think that is like the common misconception, if you would, right? But I don't really agree that it's like having 2 full-time jobs. I think the players should get paid, but I think that the point I was trying to make is there needs to be a line somewhere, because otherwise college football and college sports, period, will be consistently dominated by 5 to 10 schools every single year. That we don't want to see. I think most people would agree.
Well, and I think it depends on the argument you want to make. In a way, I think we're already seeing that with a 12-team playoff. Yeah. Is it going to change? So we're going to have to see how this all plays out. But I get what you're saying. This is interesting here. This says, first thought is how Aggie's going to pay both Jimbo and the ex-players coming to their trough with some bags of money. Teta, it is an interesting point. And the fact that Wes brought up A&M, it is a program to keep in mind. And Yes, I agree with Money B that wins do equal revenue, but Wes is right. It's been Texas and Texas A&M at 1-2 in that revenue spot for years now. I keep bringing up the fact that Texas is the only state with 2 stadiums with 100,000 capacity. That's it. Bama doesn't have that, and Louisiana doesn't have that, and Florida doesn't have that. Nobody out, and California doesn't have that. 2 stadiums, 100,000 capacity or more. It's only Texas, which helps to explain how those two schools and both those schools can raise money. So they are going to be interesting to watch in this discussion, which obviously will be really interesting for us. Somebody else brings up other names that come to mind. For Paul, it was A&M, Ohio State, Michigan, very possibly. Georgia, I think Paul has to be thrown into the discussion. Apparently, Georgia's been they're really rolling in terms of NIL, and they have definitely got some pockets there ready to go. Oregon, I think, has to be mentioned because of the Nike stuff. But Wes, think about this too. This hit me this morning as I wake up. I'm so pumped about Texas being in the SEC. I'm so pumped about the game coming back with House divided. But think about this. 16 fan bases, 16 teams in that conference. And you just told them all you can pay players above board, on the table, not like we'll get a relationship with a bank and nobody else. What? We'll get a relationship with some lawyers and what? Who? Where? No, car dealerships. What are you talking about? Now you could do not essentially whatever you want, but you can do a lot. And you got fan bases out there. This isn't just about like Arkansas and A&M and OU that want to beat Texas at this game. There are people in Oxford and Athens and Baton Rouge and Tuscaloosa ready to figure out how do they fight this new money war as well. I mean, you talk about another ingredient to add to this SEC.
You can't fight that war, not with the likes of like an A&M and Texas and a Georgia. I mean, like someone said in the chat earlier, wins equals, money within the athletic department, but LSU's been winning for years. They don't even come close to a school like Texas, right? So, yeah, it feels like the Texas walked into the SEC. This potential ruling is going to come out, or the future of athletic departments being able to pay players. If I was an SEC program outside of like Georgia or maybe A&M, I would be pretty pissed because it feels like Texas is going to walk in, throw it on the table, and just tell people who's boss.
And that's the part of it. I think the Texas, again, they need to figure it out. Like, what's it going to be? Because one thing that I've admired, well, it's kind of 2-part. I admired Texas for what I'm about to say before 2021, and I didn't understand it after 2021. Before 2021, Texas felt like a program that stood on some moral ground.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying there was never a deal being done. I'm not saying there was never anything behind the scenes. It just felt like Texas had a certain code and had a certain culture about themselves. Plus, they also had this belief that if you pick Texas or USC or Ohio State, you did it because they're the best. And if you picked, A&M or Ole Miss or schools like, well, you did it because of the money. They obviously paid you. We don't have to do that. That was kind of the mindset before 2021. Then after 2021, when NIL becomes legal and that's above board to a degree, I thought Texas then was trying to figure out, okay, wait, how do we frame this? How do we talk about it now? Because we still want to have some morality. That's the part of it, Wes. I think they've got to get figured out immediately. CDC has got to get, because in the last few years, he'll get asked about NIL and he'll say, well, that's got nothing to do with us. That's got nothing to do with us. That's not through the athletic department. And I remember thinking, wait, why is it not through the athletic department? Shouldn't you be able to? And now if they're actually able to structure all this, like they need to be able to find the button. And when they hit it, you're right. There's not one school that can touch them.
Well, one more thing too is like, if you're going to be able to pay players, when does that start? Does it start when can you make offers to players along with scholarships while they're in high school? Is it now going to be written out in a contract? Do you have to interface? Do you have to interface with an agent for every single player? Can you go direct to the player? Like, do you have to meet with an attorney? Like, whole conversation is going to become extremely convoluted.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. We've already heard from Catch, Sukamel, the people that follow recruiting, that Wes, when these guys come in for official visits, they ask current players, what's your NIL situation? And sometimes that player just shows them the contract. It's like Jerry after the draft, right? I'll show you right here. It's just, that's part of it now. And it's a great question, because here's one of the words that I would like to see, like freed. There's a word that's been in jail for a long time and it needs to be let out. It's innocent and everybody treats it like it's guilty. And that word is incentive. I hate when everybody talks about incentive like it's this you know what you can't do? You can't use NIL as an incentive. Can't do it. You can't do it. They have to show up on campus, and then whatever they get is whatever. It's like they want, like you're going to show up on campus at the edge of campus and just spin a wheel, and whatever you get is whatever. That's not how it works. If I'm up for two badass, high-paying jobs, and I'm that medical student ready to be a doctor, and one job's in LA and one job's in New York, there's stuff that goes with it, and those are incentives. This one's got a company car. This one gets me this one gets me an apartment. This one gets me a vacation home. This one gets me an extra, $40,000 and whatever. Like, that's part of it, Wes. Why have we made the word incentive a cuss word? I don't know why.
I don't either. I mean, it is what it is, right? Like I'm sorry if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck. It's a damn duck. So I don't understand why. It's because the word incentive pre-NIL, oh, you're getting paid under the table. Oh, you're getting a golden Trans Am, right? So,
right.
Another, while you were talking about that, another thought crossed my mind. I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you think that the athletic department would tier payouts to players based on, certain like playing time, stats? Like, are you going to have incentive-based contracts in college football, right? You throw for over 35 touchdowns, you get $500,000. Like, is that going to be the new norm?
Maybe. That's a good point. In terms of, how long you stay might be a part of it. Is it just a 1-year deal at a time because of transfer portal? Or do you do a 2 or remember, this kid that's suing Florida says it was a 4-year deal for $14 million. That's why he's suing them, because Napier took it all away from him.
This is where the word worry comes into my mind. Like, this is what makes me worried, right? When you like incentive-based contracts for 18-year-olds going into college, yes, they should be compensated, period. But you take the NCAA away, which is a corrupt organization, you have no entity overseeing this. Like, where's it going to get? Where's the cap going to be? I know the word cap is not mentioned in this conversation, right? But I don't know, man. It just seems like the unknown is way scarier for me as a college athletics fan.
We got more good chats coming in. Before we do that, let me tell you about My Perfect Franchise and our man, Andy. Andy Ledke, there he is, myperfectfranchise.net. You can do the email there. You can also call him, 973-9901, the 404 area code. He's about making the dreams come true. If you've got a job idea, maybe it's a side hustle, maybe it's the side hustle that you want to make into the deal, or like Ketch has talked about before, maybe this is not about you. Maybe it's about, a spouse, a child, a family member, a friend that has just an idea. Man, I got this friend and he's really good at blank and he's trying to figure out how to make it work. Maybe you can help that friend out. Andy's helped a ton of people like that out. So check him out. Andy and My Perfect Franchise, myperfectfranchise.net. All right, so as we roll through today, again, 100 days till kickoff, but we're also talking about this lawsuit with the House versus NCAA and what happens. Barring something crazy, the little guys here, the smaller conferences, they don't really have the power to stop it. They're going to have to figure out how to live in this new world. And the big conferences seem to dig the idea, and they are going to, press forward. So we're getting some good chats in, like this one from Text Guy. NCAA did not do anyone any favors with not letting this happen over time. Totally agree, Text Guy. Just like NIL, it went from absolutely nothing to everything. And it's just, it is jarring. And that's why I think, Wes, you bring in the word worry in. It is part of it. It should. We all should have a certain amount of worry. As much as I'm excited about some of the things that'll be defined here, there's got to be some worry. This is an interesting one from Michael. You would have to pay all players in every sport. We're going to see, Michael, how they break that down. Again, moving backwards for those 4 years, how do they do that? And then forwards, how do you deal with it? Which sports? All sports? Here's the other thing, Wes, we haven't mentioned yet. You talk about here's another just mind-altering thing. We're going all the way back to like Darryl Royal days when there was no scholarship limit, because they're about to get rid of that too. If this passes, 85 scholarships in football vaporizes. It's gone. You do not have to limit yourself to 85. It's whatever you want to pay. You want to pay for 60, pay for 60. You want to pay for 92, pay for 92. If you want to pay for 115, apparently, I think 115 is your limit of literal bodies they allow on a football team. Now, Wes, you could go 30 more scholarships if you could find the money. You want to pay for 30 more scholarships? No walk-ons. 115 scholarship athletes would be theoretically allowed in this new world. We're not, and this is every sport. No more caps. Baseball fans, no more 11.7. It's going away. It won't exist. It's about each school's ability to pay for, or to offer and pay for however many scholarships they want. So one school, Wes, on the baseball side might be able to say, hey, here at whatever university, here, I don't know where we're here at, I don't know, Tech or TCU, we're good for 10. We're good for 10 in baseball. And then another school might say, no, man, we're good. We'll all 2025. We've got it. So then you're incentivizing it. Sorry to use the word. You're incentivizing it differently for the kid. That's where incentives turn a little different, because now we live in a world where baseball fans hate that some schools, certain schools, Dallas Baptist comes to mind, Vanderbilt comes to mind. They use their private status to their advantage, and they end up with 25 scholarships instead of 11.7. They've been able to play the game and work the system that way. That's no longer going to be allowed in a way, because the other schools will now be able to chase them if they want to. If Texas wants to put the same number of scholarships out there that they believe Vanderbilt is utilizing through endowments or whatever, well, Texas can do it if they want to pay for it.
My golly, like once we kind of have broken this down a little bit further, and now that I'm hearing somebody else talk about it outside of what I've read, God, this scares the shit out of me, Chad. I got to be honest, because we are opening Pandora's box, and the theme behind opening Pandora's box is, we need to pay the players. Yes, players should be compensated, but are you ready for everything that's going to follow, right? You don't pay the swimming team as much as the volleyball team. The swimming team could maybe sue the university or the athletic department saying they're not being justifiably compensated. Like, it's just, there's so much, like Tex guy just said, it's going to be the Wild West. Luckily for everybody that's a Texas fan, Texas should dominate in this space, period.
Yeah, and that's exactly what LFG is saying. It says terrible, uber wealthy programs, e.g. Texas, will have an unfair competitive edge. Theoretically, UT Austin should run college sports. Wow. LFG, you've got a point there. The comparison I would make, though, Wes, I keep bringing myself to pro sports in certain ways.
Yeah.
And again, why the incentive part doesn't make any sense to me, because the Yankees aren't the Yankees just because they're the Yankees. They aren't. Guys don't play for the Yankees and go, hey, man, what's your contract? Oh, I don't have a contract. They just give me free food, and I get to say I played for Babe Ruth's team. No, that's not how it works. They also can offer more money because they're powerful, because they have a network, because they have this and that. So Texas is going to be that. Theoretically, they'll be a Yankees type of organization. Now, can they live up to it on the field? That's part of sports, right? Can the Cowboys live up to the branding that they've been last 25 years? No, they can't. Nope. And there's a salary cap in place, and you can spend money this way. The Cowboys do an okay job to sometimes bad in the draft, and they don't even know free agency exists. They're Dabo Sweeney. They don't even believe in a transfer portal. They barely deal with it. So it's how each individual organization is going to, deal with this. And yes, to LFG's point, Texas should, and that's why I'm talking about it today, Wes, on behalf of Texas and their fans and their new AD of the year, CDC. They have to be a player. Have to be. There are others that are going to try this. There are others that are going to try to stay with them. But like I said earlier, I don't know if anybody should be able to be ahead of them in some of these discussions. Because the most important thing they'll define here is, what do they mean by permissible reimbursement? The permissible permissible revenue. Once they define that, holy hell, think about where we're headed. Because I've always wondered, Wes, like I was thinking about this today. Back in the NFL days when you're probably a little young to remember Warwick Dunn, the running back.
Oh, no, I remember Warwick Dunn.
You remember Warwick? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
When Warwick was in the league, he's such a good dude. Warwick just helps people out. And he had an idea that current players should pay into a fund to help the former players, to help those guys that were bedridden, to help those guys that didn't make a lot of money like they're making and were bedridden. So he and Derek Brooks and some of his teammates started thinking about it. I don't know how far it got. I don't know where they ultimately didn't end up, taking the idea to the finish, but it's always been what I thought should happen in college. And now I wonder if this opens it up. Can CDC and the power at Texas get on the phone and talk to Kevin Durant and Turner and Bamba and Quandre Diggs and Malcolm Brown, both of them, and Roach and Amenahue, and you see where I'm going, and Vince and Ricky and all of them, and get them to find out what the permissible revenue is. If Vince Young or Ricky or whoever cuts a check to the school for this idea, is that part of the permissible revenue? Because if it is, oh my God. Then you're calling every Matthew McConaughey, Renee Zellweger, Richard Linklater, just line them up. The estate of Farrah Fawcett, like just whatever, Walter Cronkite's family, like find anybody you can that could help you out. Because then a bunch of money could go into a pot. And you're telling us that theoretically, suggestively, 20 million could go to these players. But I'll bet you if you raise more than 20 million, Wes, you can do other things with it. You can do other things with it that keep you out in front of this power struggle.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it makes me think of smaller schools with prestigious alumni, right? Like a Stanford or, some of these schools that might not be at the top of the food chain in terms of like their endowment or the money that their athletic department brings in. But if you do have reputable alumni that have gone on to do very successful things, pouring money back into the athletic department, well, those schools experience a meteoric rise in terms of college athletics because of the fact they can afford to pay the players what they need to be paid. The conversation is so convoluted and mind-boggling to me that it just freaks me out. But whenever we go back to thinking, or from the thought process of a Texas fan, it kind of makes you laugh at Oklahoma a little bit. Right, because if you are an Oklahoma fan and you're new to the SEC and you're entering a dawn of an age where athletic departments can pay players and you're competing against your so-called biggest rival in Texas, you're going to lose every time. So the battle for the Red River is not going to be necessarily decided on the football field. It's going to be decided in people's pockets, which is going.
In theory, you're right, Wes. But of course, the beauty of this on the field is why sports is sports. It's why the team that should win doesn't always win. And I get the discussion. We have some good chats here. Where did it go? Like, okay, so Cotton brings up an interesting point here. Half of the current CFB needs to move away from the bottom half, quit acting like they're relevant in the sport.
We'll dive into the details of the lawsuit, man.
Right. But Cotton, it's an interesting point. But just remember, when we discuss it, we have never had a 12-team playoff. We started this year. There were people that were convinced that we didn't need any more than 2. They were convinced. They thought it would destroy college football if we had 4. Then we got 4, and guess who won the title? Number 4 did. So we're going to have a 12-team playoff this year. And you're right that there are some teams that maybe don't need to be in the discussion. That feels like where we're headed to a point that I'm not totally thrilled with, because it's going to feel more and more like the NFL. But if we can finally get to a group of teams, 30, 32, 60, whatever the number is, that the top can at least respect enough to live with, then that might be a good thing. But right now, just think about this college football. The defending champ is Michigan. They're at least relevant to the discussion, right? They're not going to fall totally off the map. And then the teams that were in the playoff, Texas, Bama gets you to 3. Georgia gets you to 4. Ole Miss is interesting. That's 5. Missouri's pretty damn good. That's 6. Did I say Ohio State? That's 7. I mean, every year, just like in the NFL, there's, I think, going to be a group of about 6 to 8 starting the year that can really go get it. Like, does anybody on this show right now honestly believe that, like, I don't know, the Chicago Bears are going to win the next Super Bowl? No. But they got a shot. That's, theoretically, that's the beauty of it. But again, we're talking about the money building part of it today. But Cotton, I appreciate that. Now, this one this is a Cotton one where this is where we got to move from, Cotton. Can't get paid until they play. It should be the mantra. No. You are going to have to take that out of your mindset. That is not how anything else, nothing else works that way. That's not at this level, and that creates that much money. You can tell me, hey, if I go get a job at Dairy Queen doesn't pay me till I do the work. That's true. But they do pay you when you do the work, and they don't generate the kind of money we're talking about. Like, you personally don't generate the kind of money that these kids are going to be generating when they get to school. And these young men are going to have deals in place to get paid. And again, what are they being paid? Permissible revenue. Revenue is what they're, and by the way, Wes, here's an interesting number I saw today. The estimate is that they're going to be paying the players about 22% of revenue on average. About 22 from a hunk of like 22%. They estimated that's about 22% of some teams' like revenue. But in the NFL, it's 50.
Yeah.
So let's understand, we are talking about something a little bit different here. These guys are just trying to fight for some. They're trying to fight for some of the discussion. They've just got to figure out how it's how it's going to work. Let me see okay, now this is not exactly what we're talking about, Teta. Incentive-based contract. Let's talk about how that went with Ricky Williams. No, Teta. Ricky's was entirely incentive. You don't need that. Wes was just saying, are you going to include incentives in the contract, like touchdowns or whatever?
Conference championship, playoff berth, do all the players get an incentive? And by the way, 20% is not, of course, not 50%, but what did Texas and Texas A&M's athletic department generate last year? Like upwards of like let me look.
That's what my guess would be like, what, 150 or 200, something like that. I don't have the number right in front of me, but it's a lot.
That was my point. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. And that's why, again, if you make more, if you get more revenue, what will those advantages be? I think it's to me, you are completely naive today if you're thinking to yourself that Texas gets to spend $20 million and Ole Miss gets to spend $20 million and Colorado gets to spend $20 million. If that's how you think about it, I think you're wrong. I think you're absolutely wrong, because they're going to figure out a way to work the structure. And the other thing I hope, Wes, for all these teams and programs and everything, will this allow a proper connection between the athletic department, the revenue stuff we're talking about, and NIL? Will we finally get the proper connection of all these things? Because that's how the pros work. I show up and I have a contract. Well, what's that for? Well, it's the contract for playing for the team, and I represent the team. Yeah, that's true. Well, what if you win all pro? Oh, if I win all pro, I get a little extra money. Oh, that's kind of cool. Did you put that in the contract? Yep. Did you sign it? Cool. Did you keep the pen? Yes, I did. Well, what else is there? Well, I've got endorsements. Endorsements? That's crazy. Yeah, I know. I sell Campbell's soup. You do? Do you get paid for that, or do they just give you soup? It's both. That's amazing. Same thing. What's wrong with all of that existing? And then when I get to town, Wes, if I'm the badass, let's pick a guy. Let's pick who's in the next group for Texas. Ricky Stewart is the running back's name, right?
Yep.
That's one. Ricky's one of the commits. Ricky comes to town. He gets whatever agreement he is with the team. And while he's going through the process, can't he ask the question, hey, what about NIL opportunities? And they just hand him a card. Hey, here's the name of the NIL people. This is what they haven't been able to do. Chris Del Conte and these guys are afraid to talk about it because they're like, oh, no, that's not us. That's not us. The NIL is not. Why can't it all be melted together as this one big thing, this one big Texas or Ohio State or Michigan, whatever machine that's running a business? Why can't we be honest about this thing?
You're going to have some players that might not have the NFL draft measurables be high round draft picks, but they're really good college players. You might have college players that make more money in college than they would at being 6th or 7th round draft pick into the NFL, which is mind boggling to me.
Yeah. Used to be a joke. That used to be a joke about the guys would get into the NFL and joke about, I took a pay cut when I left Auburn, or I took a pay cut when I left college. It's going to absolutely be true.
Exactly. And Catherine brings up a great point. How do we think this affects the transfer portal? Completely. Yeah. It's going to, right. Well, the transfer portal is already affected pretty greatly by NIL opportunities. We're literally going to get into JT Toppin and why I think that, well, I'll give you my prediction on that later. But the fact that the transfer portal is already heavily dictated by NIL, now the athletic department can basically provide written offers to people. I'm assuming that's how it's going to go. It's going to completely change the entire landscape of recruiting, transfer portal, all of it. It's going to completely change.
Well, it's a good point. Now, Catherine, you can also look at it this way. If you want to just make the comparison, the draft is recruiting and free agency is the portal. So exactly. Is it going, how do I think it affects the transfer portal? Catherine, my simple answer would be just less people in it. I mean, you got 1,000, 1,500, 1,800. Hey, 55 people went in the portal yesterday. That probably won't be happening. I would assume you could look for, just like free agency, you'll get better quality and maybe not as much quantity in the portal. It becomes more important, which is why, Wes, if I'm the AD at Clemson, I'm having a serious conversation with Dabo today. I am sitting Dabo down and we are running through this whole thing. Coach, tell me what you think about recruiting and portal now, because they're about to let us. They're about to let us pay players. Right?
Oh, if I'm the athletic department at Clemson after next season, I'm firing Dabo Swinney. Problem solved. Get him out.
I would not if he'll agree to get on board. I'm not. I wouldn't.
That's different. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Now, if Dabo gets on board and gets in the transfer portal and is willing to dole out a couple of checks for some big time players. Absolutely. But I think that the portals are going to almost mimic NFL free agency. I think they're almost going to be a like for like comparison, except for a couple of the minutia of what it is. But I really do think that it's going to be apples to apples comparison.
Yeah. And Catherine says, I think it reels the portal in. Catherine, I would agree with that. Somebody else, Mark, says, I think there needs to be limits on the portal. Yeah, Mark, there needs to be, rules and stuff. Like windows open, windows closed, make it clear. That's what the NFL has with free agency. They need to take more cues from it. I love the idea of the windows open, the windows closed, but they need to figure it out, figure it out even more, continue to think about that process and what it means. And at the very beginning, when you sign a certain agreement, there's going to be there's going to be little portal addendums in there. If you enter the portal here, here's what you don't get. If you enter the portal here, here's what you owe us. That's going to be part of it too. That's going to be part of what Texas will present to this athlete. Hey, you are signing a 3-year agreement. If you leave us after 1 year, you don't get years 2 and 3. Or if you leave us after this certain point, that bonus we gave you at the beginning, you get to keep that. But there's this other part of it. Yeah, you don't get that. There's an incentive you get for staying for the second year. You leave us, you don't get that, whatever that money is. So I think they're going to have all that stuff. I also like this. This may be the most college football chat we've had all day. Rules will be for sissies. Text guy 2, I think you're ready for the SEC in 39 days, because I think that might be it. The new motto for the SEC might be, it just means more and rules are for sissies. I think you're probably right about that. That is fantastic. And Mark says, yeah, I agree. If you leave, you have to pay some of that money back. All right. You heard Wes mention the name JT Toppin. I want to get him to update that for all you Texas fans. We will do that here in just a second. But before we do, let's take a breath and hear from Specs. Here's Lisa to tell you all about it.
Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
All right, Wes, let's get into a little basketball here. And for those that haven't checked it out, go check out orangebloods.com and all of Wes's great coverage of basketball. Also, if you go to the YouTube page and the shorts section, Wes has had some very successful short videos. His latest is his prediction for the Texas football season. Go see what his prediction is. That one's up over 4,000 views right now, so go check it out on the YouTube page. The name Texas basketball fans are thinking about, Wes, recently has been JT Toppin. So let's get into this. It is Obi Toppin's little brother, if I'm not mistaken. And he was at New Mexico last year. But the discussion is, where does he go now? What's the latest in your mind?
It sucked for me being someone that reports on this, because on Monday morning, I posted on Orange Bloods that JT Toppin was going through the NBA Combine process. Before he entered the Combine, he was considered probably by most as an unrestricted, free agent and would not be drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's played really well at the Combine, but playing really well means a couple things. For JT Toppin, it was going from undrafted to probably fringe late second-round pick. And so most people would agree, including people in JT Toppin's camp, that another year plus an NIL opportunity would be more beneficial. So that way he can get more eyes on him. He can grow as a player and then enter the draft potentially next year. My prediction was that he would either enter the draft or he would go to Texas. Within 12 hours, that completely flipped on its head, right? I know that you and Ketch had talked about it a little bit prior. And it sounds like the JT Toppin not only has connections within the Texas Tech program, but from an NIL perspective, it sounds like the Red Raiders are going above and beyond from that perspective. That Texas just doesn't, not that they can't match it, they don't want to match it. From my perspective, Chad, that's a huge miss by the Texas staff, athletic department, what have you, whoever is to blame. You need a player like JT Toppin on this roster.
Okay,
I'm not saying you go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick to interrupt, you would tell them they need to press the button here and they need to pay this guy.
1,000,000%. He changes the dynamic of the roster completely.
Okay.
He's a very quality player. He's raw, which is why from a combine perspective, NBA draft measurables, he's a little bit undersized. It kind of goes against the grain a little bit in terms of his draft profile. But for a college player, he changes the dynamic of that roster. You already brought in a guy like Jordan Pope. You got Julian Larry. Caden Shedrick comes back. You have Jason Kent. You're putting all the pieces together. JT Toppin is the final puzzle piece. In my opinion, you go above and beyond to make sure that you secure that guy. This is a miss. And there are now rumors, Chad, that he actually committed to Texas Tech last night. We don't know. It's not been confirmed by anybody, but those are the rumors behind the scenes.
Oh, man. We're talking about a 6'9" forward here. I'm seeing 62% from the floor. 12 and 9 is what he averaged at New Mexico. I watched some of the highlights today. Wes really liked the guy. By the way, I was praying it would get to the end of the highlight without me seeing him shoot a three, and then they fit it in right at the end. Right at the end, he shot a three. But I love his stuff in the close up and mid range, little left-handed floaters and hook shots, and a lot of little stuff kind of around the rim. Something that is, like you said, what he could be for this team. Really feels like a kind of player that could connect the low post to the wing really well.
Yeah, and I think that I think his NBA draft measurables, height and weight, et cetera, I think he was closer to like the top end of 6'7", 6'8". So 6'9".
Okay.
Is that his rostered height, or did you read that off the combine?
That's what it said at New Mexico. So I was going on maybe they were giving him a little leeway there.
Yeah, and funny enough for Texas fans, Ronald Holland actually got measured in at 6'6.5". If you remember the name Ronald Holland, devastating case. But
yeah. And so for you nowadays with this NBA stuff, if he's worked his way into being a second round guy, is that enough in your mind to make him just turn his back on any college stuff and head to that opportunity? Or does he need to be considering the college stuff because, second round's a little shaky in that world?
And yeah, 100% going back. He needs to go back to school. And it's not because he can't do it at the NBA level, but late second round picks don't have a very long shelf life in the NBA. There are a couple, that stand out that have gone on to be Hall of Famers, like Amani Ginobili, for example, but it's not every day that you get a late second round pick and they blossom into the superstar and see the money that he probably wants to see when a lot of these guys enter the draft. He needs to come back to school. He needs to grow a little bit more as a player. He needs to refine his fundamentals because, as you can see, the skill set it's really interesting. He reminds
I like it.
I think the name that you'll remember is James Thomas at Texas. He reminds me of a more skilled offensively James Thomas. That's the profile that I think of. Maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit more tall. But his energy, he's fanatical on defense. He rebounds the ball really well. He can test shots. He's just a player you have to have, and this is a miss. It's a miss. Texas Tech leads here. I do not expect Texas to win. So
there's the latest on JT Toppin. As of right now, the expectation might be he's wearing red and black. So good news if you're a Texas fan, you don't have to deal with him next year in the regular season, but it's still going to hurt on some level. All right, rolling through a house divided today. Jeff Ketchum dealing with some business today. Thanks to Wes Miller for jumping in for him. Before we do anything else, I will try to make you thirsty. Check it out, kids. It's the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room out there in beautiful Dripping Springs. There's all 8 bottles for you. All 8 of those beautiful flavors. The peach and the orange, probably my 2 favorites in your upper left there. Lemon and lime. You got your ruby red and your sweet tea if you're into that kind of stuff, and cranberry, and of course the original Deep Eddy. You see the times there. Make your plans. Thursday and Friday, 11 to 7. Saturday, 11 to 5. Sunday, 12 to 5. I thought these pictures would give you a good idea. You want to go with those cocktails up at the top there? They are awesome. Have them make you a dreamsicle. Tell them I told you. Even if it's not on the menu, the dreamsicle is beautiful. The orange Deep Eddy with the cream soda, it's magical. Or if you want to go technical, you want to go vodka snob on them, you want to go flights, they can do some flights for you, like right there. And you can see the differences in all those vodkas, and you can probably tell me what all those flavors are right there with the 8. Scan the QR code and make your plan to head on out there to the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. It is always a good time. I'm in the process of making my plans to get back out there to Deep Eddy.
Man, I can't get over a vodka flight. I mentioned it last time I was on the show. A vodka flight sounds so dangerous.
It really is. It really is. Yeah, you always be careful when you're headed out to the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. I always make sure my favorite designated driver, my wife, is alongside. You want to make sure to do it responsibly because, hey, you're headed out to Dripping Springs. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful drive, but got to make sure you do it responsibly with Deep Eddy. Shout out to those folks. I know they're going to have a great time out there this weekend. And again, we're discussing the lawsuit stuff today with Texas. The most important thing right now is we all wait and see what the technical part of this is going to be. The language has not been presented fully, but literally by the end of this week, if the SEC and Pac-12 does what everybody says they're going to do, maybe even by the end of this day, it'll be done. It'll be official. And then it's about how does everyone, deal with it. One other quick point, Wes, before we get to buy or sell. I was thinking about those. You talked about smaller programs earlier. This is where it's going to be interesting to see where do the heavy hitters at the smaller programs come in. And I think of a guy like smaller but still SEC. I think of a guy like Darius Rucker. that's a South Carolina freak.
Yeah.
He's got his own like tour bus, literally like a tour style bus that he'll drive around in. He shows up at games. He's a big supporter. And if South Carolina, people don't think of South Carolina as some power in that world, but could they generate enough to get, I don't know, some badass 4-star, some badass 5-star one year? I don't know. So I wonder about schools like that on the smaller scale. Hell, Buffalo, to help them out. Does Khalil Mack's been a hell of an NFL player.
Yeah.
Does that matter in that world? That's what I just start wondering about. Does every school, you're already connected to you should be connected to your best players that are in the NFL, but that's what I'd want to see. If I'm CDC, if I'm a Texas fan or whatever, I want to see the network start to be circular to where the Kevin Durant's of the world are trying to help the current basketball players. You could literally just line it up sport to sport. And a guy like, the Rickies, the Earls, the Vinces, can you imagine? Like, just let's all picture this event, Wes. Get ready. They've never been able to do this before, ever. If you could actually advertise, we're going to get Vince, Ricky, and Earl together at an event. They're going to talk, Q&A, badass food, open bar, and you figure out how to create money from that event and channel it to the permissible revenue. I mean, that if I'm a fan, even if I'm just John Q. Nobody fan, you have got my attention. And I'll show up to that event, Wes, and I might put $50 in your pot and walk out of there thinking, I just helped Texas get the next badass guy. That's pretty cool. I don't think it's going to necessarily be just about the millionaires, but they'll start it. And once it's clearly defined of you are giving money to that, we're going to take that money and we're going to get that player, then he's going to come to Texas. And then you can give them a benefit on the back end, some ticket package or an autographed something from Vince from that night or whatever. Like, it just feels too easy once they set this up.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking bigger. Like, what if you could take alumni that donates money straight to the athletic department that might eclipse that recommended sum or whatever? Think like a Michael Dell, for example, in the Dell family. What if that guy writes a check for $5-10 million, throws it into the athletic department? Do with this what you see fit, but I want it to go to football. Like, is that how that process is going to work? Does the alumni network become much more of a spider web than something circular that's specific to the program, right? I don't know, man. The unknown is just freaky.
Well, that's a great idea, because right now we already have that in NIL. As a fan, you are able now, you could pay to an NIL fund and say, I love volleyball. I want this money to help out with NIL and volleyball. Like, you can literally do that now. So what you're talking about is totally, possible. Here's the other phrasing to remember in this discussion moving forward: private equity funds. There's already discussions with private equity people about jumping into this college football world, and they get to benefit from it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So when some of that revenue starts coming out, guess who gets the first cut? The private equity people do. But Wes, that leads me back to those smaller schools. For everybody that thinks all these schools are just going to, fall into some lake somewhere and it's over. Well, that's it. We're closing down the program. No more Eastern Washington. Sorry, Colin Cowherd. That's not how. I don't think that's how it's going to work. I think there's going to be opportunities where if you've got people connected in the right places, that, oh yeah, you didn't know I went to that school. That's interesting to me. Now, if I'm in a conference that doesn't, if I'm in a conference that has teams that doesn't play football, I might want to have a different part of a conversation. But as long as my school plays football, I don't know. I'm interested to see how everybody's going to fit into this world. So keep your eyes peeled, because it may happen by the end of this week. Bottom line, I'm going to keep saying B Texas to Texas. No Steve Patterson-like stories. No Charlie Strong era stories. Remember when the coaches had to pay to go to the dining hall? None of that crap. None of it. It needs to feel big and massive. It needs to feel like Bevo is constantly swinging his head and stabbing stuff. That's what it needs to feel like, because you're about to be in the SEC and no one should be able to outdo you when you hit the button. You just have to get the button fully connected to everything. So, hey, you got an AD of the year to figure it out. You're in good hands. Should work out pretty well. All right, Wes, before we get out of here, you want to do a little buy or sell? I put together a buy or sell for you.
Yeah, I likewise, man. So,
okay.
What do you want to do? You want to go first?
You know what? I will go first. I will let you finish off. Let's start here with the house divided. Buy or sell number one. You don't think Texas and Texas A&M need a trophy for that game. You haven't had one all these years. Why start now?
Buy. I always thought the trophies were a little gimmicky outside of the Golden Hat, of course. But I was born into this Texas relationship. So I think the Texas and Texas A&M thing has just always been about bragging rights. And I think it needs to stay that way. And what would the trophy – let me ask you, Chad, what would the trophy be?
Yeah, I don't even know where – we can talk about that after we get done with buy or sell, because I have some numbers for you to explain why you think the way you think. And I agree with you, by the way. I agree with you. I think there's some simple numbers to explain it. And we can talk about that. I saw like a championship belt idea online. It's all right. But honestly, I don't know. I don't know what you'd do with it because we just never had one. Buy or sell number two, after going 2 in barbecue in Arlington, you think Texas baseball is a lock to go to the College Station Regional?
A lock. Ooh, that language is – I don't know if they're a lock. Okay. I would say it's a pretty good chance. So I guess that's selling?
Yeah, that's good. Very good. See, when you can pick it apart now, you're becoming a pro at buy or sell. Well done. Well done. How about this one in the NFL? Aaron Donald has a birthday today. He is happily retired and 33. He is on your all-time NFL defensive player, Mount Rushmore.
Buy a million times over. The guy had a lot more fuel in the tank. He retired, a year ago? Or was it this offseason?
Yeah, this next year is the first without him, if I'm not mistaken.
Retired at 32. Probably could have played a lot longer. Best defensive tackle that I've ever seen. And I think that a lot of people would probably mirror that. I'm buying all day.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you really get fair about it, I think Lawrence Taylor and him, and then you can kind of have discussions, whether Dion is at that level. Is it Singletary? Is it like, there's a lot of guys there, but I think those two might be locks. All right, let's see how old I am, Wes. Buy or sell number 4. Today, marvelous Marvin Hagler would have turned 70. You can tell me who he is.
Marvin Hagler was a boxer, I believe. Am I correct? So I'm buying.
Very good.
I don't remember who he fought. I'm assuming somebody like Muhammad Ali or like a Joe Frazier. I'm assuming that was in that era of boxing or maybe after.
In that era, but different weight class. Yeah,
there
different.
We go.
And actually, for those two guys, maybe it was a little after that era. He was big in the 80s.
Okay, I got you. But yeah. I have heard the name Marvin Hagler.
Here's something for you, Wes, and others to do if you've never seen it. The marvelous Marvin Hagler had a fight with Thomas Hitman Hearns. They fought one time. They fought in April of 85. I rewatched the fight today. From the first bell to the end of the fight, it's 10 minutes. But it's a hell of a 10 minutes. Go watch. Hagler Hearns from 85. That's all I'm going to tell you. I just got chills saying it out loud. It is one of my favorite fights of all time. Go check it out. Happy birthday to the memory of marvelous Marvin Hagler. We lost Marvin Hagler in, was it 21 when he died? Yeah, 2021. Rest in peace to marvelous Marvin. All right, I'm taking a chance on this last one, Wes. I know Jeff Ketchum has seen both of these movies because he's a movie freak. We'll see if you have. Buy or sell number 5, Bad Boys 3, better than Deadpool 2.
I'm going to sell. I really like the Deadpool series. I'm pretty biased. I'm a big Marvel guy. So I'm going to sell. And I think that Ryan Reynolds was born to play Deadpool in a weird, that sounds weird, me saying that out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not a huge fan of Bad Boys. I think the first one was really funny. But I think that post Will Smith slap on stage, I just have a hard time watching anything he's in.
Okay, so you're in for Deadpool 3 with Wolverine, but you're out on the next Bad Boys.
Yes.
Okay, Fair enough. Both are about to come out. Bad Boys hits June 7th, and Deadpool is later
But
this
see,
year.
Bad Boys feels like a money grab, doesn't it? Like these resurrections of old series or old movies, like it just feels so forced and like a money grab.
It is a money grab, but like the folks that keep making those Fast and Furious movies say, it is a money grab. But man, if we can grab that much money every time, we're going to keep doing it because it just keeps making money.
Yeah. Well, I don't have mine on screen, but
all right, here we go.
All right. You've seen Band of Brothers and you think that it's the best historical drama of all time.
Unfortunately, I have to sell on this one just because I haven't seen it. I know it is thought of as one of the best ever, and I've just never seen it. I'm going to sell. Sorry.
Okay,
I'm
Chad,
sure.
I don't know if you're busy this weekend.
Now, how long? What kind of commitment do I need for Band of Brothers? Is it like multiple seasons? What is it?
One season. It's a mini series. I believe it's 8 episodes.
Okay, 8 episodes for Band of Brothers. All right, I'm gonna write it down.
Are you a Saving Private Ryan guy?
I loved Saving Private Ryan. Yes.
Yeah, so think of it like 8 different versions of Saving Private Ryan. It follows a company called Easy Company in the Eastern Theater of World War II. And they fought in every major conflict in World War II, from landing on Normandy all the way to capturing the Eagle's Nest. You got to see it.
Okay. All right. Why is he writing it down? Rex, I'm writing it down so I can remember it because I'm an old man now. What are you talking about? That's something that Tom Hanks and Spielberg have something to do with it?
Yep. I believe they co-produced it.
All right, you know what? I'm putting it on the list. I will check it. And it was an HBO produced thing.
HBO,
is that right?
Yeah. If you have Max, it's on Max.
Perfect. Okay, I will check it out. I'll check it out for you.
All right. Next up, you're buy or sell. You're going to watch the Conor McGregor Michael Chandler fight in July, and Conor McGregor wins.
Whoo! Let's see. I like how you combined those two. I'm going to throw a challenge onto Conor here. I'm going to sell because I think Chandler wins the fight. I want to watch it, but I have questions about Conor's just sharpness moving forward. He's been involved in a lot of stuff, which I'm happy for him about, but it's just hard to stay polished as a fighter when you're not fighting regularly. He left that world, kind of, was ready to come back. And then they did the coaching for the not tough enough, what they call it, Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
But then they didn't have the fight, and now they're going to come back around. Like, I'm leaning Chandler until Conor proves me wrong. So I'll sell that part of it, but I'm watching.
I think that I'm going to have to agree with you because Conor does everything but fight. On his social media, it's all forged Irish stout and proper 12 whiskey and him going to all these events or him driving Lambos and Bentleys and whatever. I'm a big Conor McGregor fan, which I know might piss a lot of people off. I'm not like a diehard fan, but I like watching him talk shit and then beat people. I think that's awesome.
Right.
Kind of like Sugar Sean O'Malley right now. Yeah. So I hope he wins because I think that'd be good, really, really good for the UFC. But we'll see.
Yeah, the reason the villains are so important is because you have to watch no matter what happens. You have to watch when you have to watch when they're right, and you have to watch when they get shut up. And both of them are awesome to watch.
It's why we're watching the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight. Everybody can say as much as they want to. Everybody is going to watch that fight, and everybody is praying to God that Mike Tyson knocks out Jake Paul.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong about me and that fight, but I don't think I'm going to be able to stay away from that one. I think I'll have to watch it.
Yeah, you're going to have to watch it.
I think you're right. Yep.
All right, next, buy or sell. Quinn Ewers is among the top 3 quarterbacks drafted in the upcoming 2025 draft.
Top 3 drafted quarterbacks. Top 3. You know what? I'll be bullish and buy because today I was sitting thinking about all the receivers they brought in and what happens if it all works out and what happens if they all go badass at the same time and we get the developed Quinn throwing them the ball. So yeah, I'll buy the top 3 guys. Yes. I right now I can't think of 3 off the top of my head that I know will go before him. So I'll buy.
Not that I know will go before him, but the 3 that stand out to me would be Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe, and maybe someone like a Jackson Dart, but I don't think Jackson Dart is going to have a season like that. So
Right.
I'm going to have to agree with you. I would also buy that. Why's my voice cracking? I'm 29 years old. Next buy or sell. You've seen Napoleon, and you liked it.
Sell. Is that the one with the Joaquin Phoenix?
Yes.
Yeah, the chances of me sitting through that entire movie are going to be pretty low because it's probably a long one. I love Joaquin. I'm sure he does a great job, but no, I've not seen it. Is it good? Good enough to see?
Do you remember that comment I made about Christopher Nolan in a chat a while back? I'm saying Orange Bloods is like the Christopher Nolan of insider networks. You just have to assume it's good.
Right.
I think he missed with Napoleon.
Really? Okay.
I did. I feel like I could have gotten those 2.5 hours back. 3 hours, actually.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's just too much of a commitment for me. Joaquin's tremendous. I'm a big Johnny Cash guy, and I thought he was phenomenal in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
He's great in other things. For some reason, I love the movie Her. I don't know what.
Okay.
I don't know what it is about that movie that attracts me. ScarJo's voice is great. The idea is bizarre, but Joaquin just is mesmerizing in that movie. But no, when I saw the preview for that, I'm like, good for him. I'm sure it's good, but I'm not enough of a history freak to sit through that thing.
See, I am. I'm a big history freak, and it just let me down. I think the first Joaquin movie I ever saw was Ladder 49 when he plays the firefighter.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
That's an amazing movie. All right, last buy or sell. Jaden Blue usurps CJ Baxter as running back or as RB1 before the Oklahoma game.
The time parameter. I think I'm going to sell that. I'm going to still live in the camp where I think Steve Sarkisian really believes in CJ Baxter. And if he had the choice, I think it's going to be quantity of carries goes to CJ. The quality of carries may end up with Blue, if that makes any sense. I think Blue
100%.
might have the shows we remember, but I think in the end you're going to look and go, "Oh, look at that! Baxter had more carries." So I think that's how it'll break down.
Let me build on top of that. Then, who do you think the better running back is? To your naked eye, when you watch them run, who do you feel like should start the opener as RB1?
I think it's Blue.
Me too.
I think it's Blue, but I would love for CJ Baxter to make me wrong.
Me too, man.
Because the flash of that moment, Texas fans can still remember that moment, but that big run he had when he got hurt. Remember that one early on? God, it was a badass run, and you thought, "Oh, hey, this is CJ. Oh, hell, he's hurt." Like if he can recapture that, then he could prove it to everybody, including Jaden Blue. I'm interested to see how that battle plays out.
Me too, man. Yeah, I think of the Houston game. When the game's on the line, you just kept giving the ball to CJ Baxter over and over and over again when Malik Murphy was behind center. But I do agree with you. I think that Jaden Blue is better. He's also much faster.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, that straight line speed of his is crazy. I think he's going to have some big moments. All right, that was 5, right? You good?
Yep, that's 5. I'm good.
All right, we got a couple chats and a super chat on the way out. Thank you, Hooked on the Horns. $5 says, Chad, Texas and Texas A&M do play for a trophy. So, Hooked, I don't know if you're talking about that State Farm trophy from back in the day. It was around for a while. I guess that's what you're talking about. But remember that one, if you're talking about another one, please let me know. But that one was a generic trophy for the entire sports that they played in. It wasn't just a football thing. So to my knowledge, there's not a single trophy that is the football game winner. So if you're just referencing that one, I always thought it was weird. And I even got to see it from the inside because when I was covering Texas women's basketball, I found out the weird truth of those trophies. Sometimes they didn't even have them. They wouldn't even bring them to the arenas, which makes no sense. And they wouldn't present them after games sometimes. It's like, well, wait a minute. And they would agree before the game, hey, if the visitors win, we're not going to present it on the floor. What? They did that in Austin and College Station. You're like, what are you talking? If you're playing for the trophy, present the trophy. So I think that is a decent reason for just don't worry about it. Like, stay away from it. But here's the other thing, Wes, to your point earlier. If I'm a Texas fan, I would think about it exactly like you're thinking about it, Wes. Now tell me, here's the extra question. Do you think there needs to be a trophy for Texas and Arkansas? Because I saw that question on Orange Bloods
Oh,
this week as
shit.
well.
Oh, sorry.
Should there be a trophy for that game?
Maybe.
So here's the argument I would make for why it's no in those cases. First of all, again, you've never had it. If you haven't had it all these years,
Yeah.
what? Texas A&M started playing in like the 1890s.
Yep.
And nobody's thought to have a trophy until State Farm jumped again, but that wasn't just football. So here's the argument I would use. I double checked today just some overall numbers. These are the kind of numbers, Wes, that no other Aggie wants to think about because it brings them too close to reality. But here it is. You want to play big brother, little brother? Here we go. If Texas stopped winning football games and A&M won every game they played moving forward, Wes, do you know how long it would take the Aggies to catch the Longhorns in total wins?
We'll go with 35 years.
That would be a better version of what I'm setting up. It's not quite that distinct. It's 12 years. They would have to go 12, almost 12. It's like 11.75. They'd have to go 12 full years to catch Texas. So when a Longhorn fan says, well, wait a minute, we don't look at them on the same level. Why would you need a trophy? I kind of get it. But guess what it is for Arkansas? Arkansas would need to win for almost 16 years. They've got less wins than the Aggies do. So I get that a Texas fan would tell me, we don't need a trophy for the Aggies, and we don't need a trophy for the Hogs. Do you know why you're okay with that hat in Dallas? Do you know what the win total is with you in Oklahoma right now? Do you know who's ahead?
I know it's Texas by – I know Oklahoma's gained a lot of ground over the last 20 years. I think Texas up at what, 40, 30?
6.
Oh, boy. Okay,
6.
much more competitive.
By the numbers I'm looking at today, it's 6 wins. But why is Texas okay with a trophy? Why do they see them as a rival even though they can't stand them? Oklahoma's got 3 more national titles, 18 more conference championships, and 5 more Heisman winners. Aggies, Hogs, that's why. That's why. Just be realistic about your positioning in this discussion. Texas and Oklahoma are on a completely different level than you guys in football when it comes to the full history that you're looking at. So when I read it on Orange Bloods, I thought, why do you need a trophy? And also, Texas has not been like a Big Ten kind of team. The Big Ten loves trophies. But yeah. Texas has never been hey, if we're going to play a game, we need a bucket or a keg of nails or a Paul Bunyan. No, they don't do that. Like Michigan and Michigan State and Ohio State, they play for a lot of them. Texas has never done it. They just deal with the Dallas thing. I totally get it. I totally understand it. A couple other quick chats back to the discussion about the college football landscape. Scott says unlimited scholarships. You still have to have an equal number of scholarships for men and women. Scott, that is an interesting point, and it's another element that we're going to have to watch here. So back to scholarships go. Yeah, well, back to scholarships go away. Here's how that'll work, Wes. Right now, if you have 85 scholarships in football, you do have to match that with women's sports. One of these days, they might want to get realistic and separate football, but they don't do that now. So you got to keep everything even. So think of it this way. If you want to add 30 more scholarships, that's cool, but you got to add 30 scholarships for women's sports too. So yeah, good point, Scott. You do have to balance all of that out. So as you think about it, maybe what you would think of is, well, okay, we're not going to truly add 20 football scholarships, but we're going to add 10, and then we're going to hand the women's athletic department 10 scholarships and say, do with them what you will. Go whatever you want to do. You want to grab 2 rowers and 2 basketball players and a couple softball pitchers. You do whatever you need to do, but here you go. Here's your 10 because we're going to use 10 here, or maybe however you're going to break it up. Scott, that's a great point. And also Catherine's with me liking the movie Her. Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate that. It is a weird movie. I don't know why I love it so much, but I do. The scene where he's sitting on the steps and realizes something that he had not realized before, and you as the viewer hadn't thought of it before. It's a mind-blowing scene. I love that movie. Shout out to Joaquin Phoenix. But apparently I can miss Napoleon. Wes
You
is
can
giving me
miss
permission.
Napoleon.
Yeah, Wes has given me permission to not even deal with it. And by the way, Hooked was talking about that State Farm one. Hooked, I get it. I just never felt, maybe you're different. I never felt that trophy. It was okay. Big state of Texas. It said State Farm, had some maroon and orange on, and they had that logo. I've got the t-shirt that I wear sometimes of that, State Farm Lone Star Showdown, and they put the thing on the field, but they just didn't treat it right to me. If you're going to have a badass trophy, have a badass trophy. The thing I get scared about, Wes, is the last time A&M got involved in a trophy that felt fake and manufactured, it was the South Carolina thing, and it's just silly. They made this trophy in 2013. By the way, here are the two people that commissioned it: Rick Perry and Nikki Haley. Couldn't make that up if I tried. Because they were the respective governors. Somebody found a connection between James Bonham, the Texas revolutionary hero, and South Carolina, because he went to South Carolina, was born and raised in South Carolina, and I think attended the university, but then he ends up fighting at the Alamo, and he's famous in the state of Texas. So they made a trophy, but then for years, nobody knew where it was. Now, A&M won every game up to they've only lost one time, but they wouldn't present the trophy at the game, and they would ask players about it, and they didn't know it even existed. Will Muschamp got to South Carolina, never knew there was a trophy, and then they find out it's in the archive room at the Alamo, just hanging out. It was stupid. So it was manufactured
here in town in San Antonio?
Yes, it was just chilling out in San Antonio for a while. So if you're going to do it, you got to do it right, but it's going to feel weird to me if we get to like SEC media days and we're walking through the halls and they actually have a trophy sitting up there. This is what they'll play for. And like, okay, maybe. Cool. I don't know. Better do it right. If you're going to do it, you need to do it in a way that just blows everyone's mind. Like, make it a championship trophy that Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes would have killed and bled for. If you make it that, make it unique, make it special, because I can't think of one. There's no college football rivalry that plays for a belt, like that level of a belt. When Quinn Ewers got that belt from The Undertaker at the Big 12 title game, it was kind of cool.
It was cool.
We all went like, yeah, that's cool. And the Big U hands it to you. Yeah, that's awesome. But boy, you better be careful. You better be careful. Speaking of careful, thanks to Chris Bennett, one of our great fans, for putting the trailer for the new Beverly Hills Cop movie in my Twitter feed today. Oh, I am worried, Wes. Highly worried. Highly concerned.
I told you, man, when you resurrect things that need to be put to rest, like let us enjoy. It's like aged scotch. Let us go back and revisit and enjoy it. Don't remake it and ruin it.
Yeah.
Please.
No, I agree. It feels like they haven't learned the lesson from Coming to America, because that sequel was god awful. I saw the preview and I knew it was going to be awful. I sat through it because I'm a franchise guy, but it was bad, really bad. And Eddie was a huge part of why. And I watched this preview today and I thought, he doesn't have it. Trying to recapture a character like 20 years. What was that? 84 was the first movie. 84, 87. The two movies he cared about stopped in like 87. Think about how long that is. You're asking this cat to go back. What is that? 37 years?
Yeah, no thanks.
I mean, that's going to be tough. And it's on. I think it's going to be Netflix, so I'm going to watch it, but I'm worried. I'm concerned.
Chad, have you seen Star Wars?
Oh, yes.
Okay, you're a Star Wars guy.
I am a Star Wars guy.
I'm a big Star Wars nerd. Probably read 15 books. Like I heard that they're coming out with 3 more Rey movies.
Oh, good.
When I tell that to you, what is your initial reaction?
Is my reaction. It's an It's the same reaction as when I saw the preview for Solo, or when I saw the preview for, to a degree, Rogue One, although Rogue One was really good. It feels like, they're trying. Like, they're trying, maybe too hard, but they're trying. And it's probably unnecessary. But, Daisy Ridley was good enough that I would at least entertain the idea. I'll tell you that.
Oh, she was great. I like Daisy Ridley. I think that she's awesome. I thought that John Boyega's awesome, even though I thought that what Disney did to his character was pretty horrible. I just think that they need to get a completely new writing staff. They need to get Kathleen Kennedy out and then bring that franchise back to what it needs to be. Yeah. Acolyte looks ridiculous. I don't know if you've seen the previews.
I saw that little preview. I don't know enough about it to know what I think of that. I'll just give you the idea. Here's the one way to get me interested. If you tell me it's Daisy Ridley, 3 more movies, and Jon Favreau directs all 3, I'm in.
Me too.
Sight unseen, I'm in. Because I trust Jon Favreau now that I've seen his work with Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and all that stuff. I trust that dude with my Star Wars fandom. I will trust him all day. Hooked is back in. Thank you for another $5, Hooked. We appreciate it. Said, no, Chad, that State Farm thing is ugly, and I want us to have something better than that if we're going to have a trophy. Exactly. Hooked, I totally agree with you. And again, I'm telling you, from the Aggie side of that discussion, it's my favorite college football game ever. But the Aggies are not good enough historically to really argue for a trophy. Like, I just don't think it's necessary. The bragging rights are enough. Wes said it earlier. It's true. Go ask any Aggie or Arkansas Razorback fan. Oh, man, what's it feel like to beat Texas? Let them explain it to you and then say, do you need a trophy with it? I'm guessing most of them would say, well, no, because you beat them. That's the point. Does everybody need a trophy when they beat the Yankees or Notre Dame? No, you beat a brand. That's the thing. And if the brand beats you, the brand gets to go, whew, well, I don't have to hear their crap for another year. Like, that's how those rivalries work. There's a power structure that, frankly, those little brothers don't quite understand. They don't want to believe it, even though it's true. So that, to me, if that's how it's lived all these years, I don't know that I would create something. Be really careful, because in this day and age, nobody's going to like it. Like, you're going to have everybody rip it apart online. And, no matter what it is, I know the Aggies will get blamed for it. Nobody will. If it's a horrible trophy, Texas will not get blamed. Texas will stand back and go, well, that's a horrible idea. Obviously, we had nothing to do with that. They'll blame the Aggies for that. They'll assume the Aggies wanted it because the Aggies are the group that made up some stuff they didn't deserve, that gave Jimbo the stupid plaque, that put lies on the wall of their stadium, that claimed the spring game as a win. Like, they've done all of that. Texas has a few, but they're to a lesser degree. Texas has a couple, but nothing like what the Aggies have done. Nothing, that blinder mentality of like, we're just going to do it. Hey, gig 'em howdy whoop. It's going to work. No, it's not. No, it's not.
It's like, did you see the thread on Orange Bloods about DeCorian Moore?
No.
So someone took a snippet of Texags and posted what this guy said on Texags on Orange Bloods. And this guy was so upset hearing that Texas was more than likely going to land DeCorian Moore, and just basically threw out every accusation that an Aggie has ever given to a Longhorn, ever created, and threw it in one message. I will send you the link to the thread if you want to read it. It is the funniest thing I've read online in a minute.
That is good. I will check it out. All right. We will wrap it up here. Thanks to everybody for jumping in. Again, 100 days till kickoff. Congrats again to CDC for that AD of the year. Thanks for the super chats and chats today. Thanks, of course, to Specs for their great partnership. Also, speaking of partnerships, if you want to advertise with Orange Bloods, here's how you do it. orangebloods.com or maybe Orange Bloods Live. Or if you want to be a part of helping us get to Dallas and SEC Media Days, we're looking for travel partners there as well. Contact Cody or Sonny, and they will be able to help you out. We do appreciate all those great partnerships because we just couldn't do it without all of y'all. And we couldn't do it without all y'all on the chat. And I couldn't have done it today without Wes Miller. Wes, thank you so much for your time, brother. Everybody check out orangebloods.com for the latest. And again, if you missed the JT Toppin update earlier, Wes is of the opinion that maybe it's Texas Tech, and maybe it's happening pretty quickly. Maybe he's already committed to Tech. Keep it tuned in to orangebloods.com. Wes, as you see there, is at Wes Miller OB. He'll get you the very latest on Twitter and other places what's going on. Everybody have a good rest of your Thursday. Back tomorrow on a Friday. I think Catch will be back with us tomorrow. Either way, it'll be at high noon tomorrow. Until then, we are house